Hi and welcome to my channel. Today we'll be looking at some pictures I took this past few days, and I will be showing you the different variations of the pictures I took and the one that I will settle on and fully edit and finalize. I'll be uploading these pictures on Shutterstock and on Splash Wallpapers if you would like to get access to them that way. Without further ado, let's get started. Before we officially start, gotta drink some coffee out of the lens that I'm recording on right now. Let's get started. Okay, so here are the important pictures. Now, this is a very strange looking picture, and I'll tell you the story. So the story is, I was out with this girl on a date, and I had the camera with me, and I just got this idea for us to take a picture that has never been taken before. This picture had to be original, and it couldn't be a picture that was taken before by anybody else. Has anybody photographed this monkey before? I don't know, but let's just assume not. So we were just walking by, and she said, what if I take picture of a tree? What if I do a sidewalk? What if we do this, that? And I was like, none of those are original. Has to be something very original and creative. And then we kept walking and walking, and we found this monkey that was just chilling. He didn't have any of the stuff that you see on him, and then we accessorized Mr. Monkey. So these are her glasses. We found a purple flower nearby and took off the flower petals a little bit, put it on the sunglasses. This is the coffee shop we went to. Eye drops and Tylenol, because she had that in her purse, and we're like, might as well just put it in the hands of the monkey. Now, that's the background story over. Let's look at the actual picture. This is the first picture that was taken, then second, third, and then 15 pictures total. In the first picture, we see it's a portrait picture. So these two are the same picture. And then we go landscape. Here I'm just trying to see different angles and see what works best for our friend monkey over here. We can see that the focus is on the eyes and on the face. A few more pictures. Here I tried moving the camera angle a little bit so we can see the walkway. One more portrait picture. This is a little bit more subject focus compared to the first ones here. This one is just a picture of, like, you will look at it and you would be like, what's going on? This one has a monkey in focus, and you can see his big smile directly looking from above. This one is similar idea, but a much more close-up picture, zoomed in at 45 millimeters. The lens and camera that was used to take these pictures is a Canon R6 with a EF to RF adapter, and the EF lens that I'm using is a 24-105 f4. We are zoomed in a little bit, low ISO, and then same picture as here, but a little bit more zoomed out, just trying different things out, and here it is. So out of these pictures, this one is my favorite because we are following the golden ratio of 1/3 to 2/3. The tree dissects the frame here at 1/3, and then we have the monkey sitting down. If we crop out the picture a little bit like this, so the monkey is the main subject of the frame in the 1/3 point of view, then we see that there's too much tree in the background. Now the trees is nothing particularly subject worthy, so I don't think we should be giving the main frame to the trees. That's why I like this picture, but with the monkey being center view, and for the first branch of the tree to be dissecting the 1/3 frame. And then the other key thing to note is that the eyes and the body of the monkey is in the bottom third. We have headroom, and we can see under his feet, but we don't have to get the entire flower pot as we did, let's say, in this picture. Again, the flower pot is nothing of interest. Same with the background, and same with this. I'm gonna leave the crop the way it was because I spent time while taking a picture to make sure everything was set up properly. So this is the picture as it is. We're not going to touch anything. Now we're going to start with the editing process. So here I want to bump up the contrast a little bit. The exposure is fine, but we can see here on the head of the monkey, the sun is blowing it out a little bit. Same with his stomach, and same with the top of his feet. It's too bright. So the way to adjust that is we bring down the highlights a little bit. In this situation, the shadows are primarily in the plants in the background and a little bit here. So if we bump this up all the way, it brightens the entire frame. But then what's the point of brightening up the entire frame? Because we will be just distracting from the main subject, which is the cool monkey. So in this situation, I want to bring down the shadows from where it was a little bit so we have separation between the background and our subject. For highlights in the whites here, if we bring this down, pay close attention to the top of the head and the stomach and the legs. So this is where it was, and this is where it will be. The other thing to note is that this does the job of bringing the exposure down for the entire frame slightly. So if you do bring this down, then we have to go into the exposure part and slightly boost it. So it brings everything back up. Again, with our blacks, just to show you what the extremes look like, this really makes everything brighter, and this darkens everything. We will slightly lower it so there is that separation once again. Now for texture, this has that Instagram effect where it sharpens everything. Everybody starts by boosting this all the way up, but there's no need to touch it because the picture is already sharp as it is, and it creates this effect on the fur where it's just too edited looking, and it's not a realistic look to a picture. Same with clarity. It's best to leave these as zeros because there's nothing that can be gained from boosting this all the way or even slightly. In a scenario where you do want to show the flower pot details, you would boost this slightly up and you can see the lines more clearly. However, since we are taking this picture at a 65mm focal length at an f5, pretty open, there's a little bit of separation focus from where the focus is on the eyes versus the flower pot, which is about 30 centimeters, 40, 50 centimeters away, lengthwise, if you were to look at it this way. This distance means that this is not in focus. This part is. Now if we go back down to 0, we can see this part is in focus, while this part is out of focus. And that's very intentional. But if we boost up the clarity, then we can see the lines a little bit more clearly, but that's not the intention of the picture. If the intention of the picture was for everything to be in focus, then what you would do is boost up the ISO, and then also boost up the focal length, and then bring down the shutter speed to compensate for it a little bit, and then take the picture at a f16, possibly, so that everything in that picture would be in focus. But here we are looking for that separation between the background, the subject, and the flower pot. So we will not touch any of this. Now, if you have a good camera like this Canon R6, or if you're just taking the pictures with your phone, most color schemes right now for camera sensors are pretty set to display good colors as the eye sees it. However, every now and then you want to boost up the saturation. Again, this gives a really fake look to it, but boosting it slightly might be good. Now, either we can boost up the saturation for the entire frame like this, and it will give us this effect, or we can go down in the settings here. Either we can boost up the saturation for the entire frame like this, or we can go into the color mixer setting down here and change each color by itself. Now we go into the mixer setting and we switch it from hue to saturation, and then here I'm going to pay attention to, let's say, the color green, because it's obviously the most visible. I'm going to pay attention to the color green. If we go down all the way, well, obviously the green plants in the background are gone. They've turned to grayscale. If we boost it all the way, then we can see it more clearly. Now let's do the same thing for orange, which is the color of the fur on the monkey. Obviously, the background didn't change, but the orange of the subject changed. Versus if we do it this way. So in this scenario, I do want a little bit of more separation, so I'm going to go down on the green. And the monkey, I want him to be popping a little bit more, so I'm going to go up slightly on the orange. And on the yellow, because orange and yellow in this scenario are the same color. Now with the red, if I go all the way, then the coffee mug becomes more red, which is nice. But then also, we have the sunglasses. So in this scenario, you have to see what you would want to make more visible. A little bit is okay, but this is too much. So we're going to go up slightly. Now, same with the color blue. Obviously, the eye drops and the flower are a mix of blue and purple. So we're going to go up slightly. This becomes more visible, and it shows that the monkey is actually holding the eye drops. Versus if it was before, then you don't see the blue and it doesn't pop as much. So if we go up slightly, then we see this clearly. We see the coffee mug more clearly. And the boost in red also shows the tunnel more clearly. And then with purple, if we go all the way, then same thing. There's a fair bit of purple in this picture. We have the purple of the eye drops. We have the purple of the coffee mug. And we have the purple in the sunglasses and the flower. So here we go up slightly so the colors pop a little bit more. And then magenta, there isn't any. Okay, so with the color magenta, obviously exists naturally here. But if we boost this all the way, then we can see that it creates this really fake look to everything. So what we're going to do with magenta is bring it down slightly so the other colors in this coffee mug can pop and the sunglasses can become a little bit more neutral. Now, the one thing we did not talk about is the white balance. Now, the white balance is right now as shot. If we go to auto, then it changes it. But if we go to as shot, here we have the slider. If we go all the way to cool, then the picture becomes cold slightly. But if we go to warm, then it's giving warmer vibes. If we reset this, my impression of this picture is that this is a very personal, friendly, inviting picture, slightly funny and adventurous. So I don't want it to be cold. If it was a picture of, let's say, a landscape where there's no particular subjects, maybe in that situation I want the picture to be a little bit more on the cooler side. But here, I want the viewer to have an inviting experience with the picture. So I am going to take the white balance and go up until the point where I feel it is inviting for me. Now this is honestly personal preference at this point of how warm you want to do it. You don't want to overdo it where it looks like this. You know, this looks like as if every single Hollywood movie was shot in Mexico, if you know what I mean. But then this, I feel like it's a little bit too cold for my personal taste. So we're going to go up slightly. It might be a little bit too much. I think 5,000. I think 5,550 is a good number. This gives a very inviting temperature to it, and the viewer can look at it and wonder what the story is instead of looking at it and saying, what is that picture? Okay. Now let's play around with the crop slightly. I don't like the fact that we are showing so much of the flower pot, so I'm just going to bring this up a little bit and then bring this in. Now let's discuss a couple of other pictures here. Now we have this picture here, and then we also have this picture here. In your mind, which one looks better? This one or this one? My personal preference is on this angle of the frame, which we're looking at the monkey from the left side of the frame. So why is this one better? In this picture, we can see that a lot of the background is showing, and the walkway is also showing over here, and the pillar of the building. Now with all these components in the frame, the monkey, shot at 24 millimeters, which is the widest angle, is just blending in into this background, and there isn't any clear subject separation. Versus this picture, which is shot at 70 millimeters and at f5 again. This really should have been f4, but f5 is close enough. Here we have a clear subject, which is the monkey, maybe a little bit too much of the flower pot, and preferably when I should have taken this picture, it should have been taken like this, where the monkey would be in the 1/3 frame, and then more of the building in the background so that there would be a clear subject separation. Let's leave this as is for now. Here's the difference. Both of them are side angle pictures, so we have a direct comparison of the two pictures. Again, this one we feel as if you're closer to the subject. We're looking at it and it's more personable, while this one, it just looks like a weird monkey in a flower pot on a walkway. So these are the two different viewpoints and perspectives that you have to go into while taking the picture. So let's start editing this one. So as I said, I don't like how the monkey is not in the 1/3 line exactly. So we're just going to cut this out a little bit and bring it in, and that gives a much better view to it because we have a clear separation of where he is, and we know that he's looking out into somewhere and he's just laying back and chilling. So again, let's go down the list. So for this picture, we adjusted the ISO to be 5550 and the white balance, and looking at it right now, actually it seems a little bit too high, so let's go down a few levels to 5400, and then just tone down the saturation of orange slightly and red. So it's always, this is a perfect example, it's always good to go and come back to a different picture and let your eyes readjust, because I just had my eyes readjust and I noticed that the temperature was way too warm. So 5400, this is relatively close. We will be adjusting the saturations later on. In terms of contrast, let's boost it a little bit so there is more of a contrast between the foreground and the background. Now another reason why this picture is chosen over this picture is because in this picture we have obviously our subject and we have the background, But then in the background, there's three distinct components. There is the walkway here, there is the trees here, and then we also have this support pillar for the building. Now, 1, 2, 3 is too much in the background, especially when our subject isn't so clearly identified. Versus here, we have the trees which are adjacent to our background, and then the clear background is the main building, which is just gray. So the greenery here gives a warm, inviting look, while the background just fades away. Now in this situation, again, the top of the head is blown out because of the sun. So we're going to bring down the highlight slightly, more so the white. The shadows should be kept as they are because our frame is perfectly lit and the focus of the attention isn't on the shadows. I do want a little bit more separation, especially in the background here, between where the tree is and where the plants are and where the building fades away. So I will be bringing down the blacks. Now let's just see that again. So this obviously made this area significantly darker, and this looks a little bit too underexposed. So what are we going to do about this situation? We will come into the linear gradient, and we will make a linear gradient here, and Lightroom automatically sets it to 1, but this is the difference. If we boost it slightly, and this is perfect, we can see that the monkey is clearly sitting in something and it's not too underexposed. As such. So before, our entire frame was not lit because of the changes we made to the blacks, but now our entire frame is lit. We can clearly see the flower pot. The flower pot isn't meshing with the black background and with the trees in the background. There's a clear flower pot here. We can see him chilling, and we have clear subject separation to the building behind. Let's come back to here. So in this scenario, I think that the actual focus point was done on the mouth of the monkey here. So what we said earlier about boosting up the texture and clarity, we will do it ever so slightly, just so that he becomes fully cleared. Now this is a little bit too much. Let's bring this down to 7. The texture up to 7 as well. Much better. Now again, what we did with the individual color saturations, it will go up very slightly on the red, the orange, slightly, yellow, again slightly, and then green we're not going to go down to 0, but we're not going to boost it all the way either. Now in this scenario versus this scenario, The center here, we had a lot of greenery and support pillar of the building, but the primary background is green. And if you want to create that separation, we had to tone down the green, going from where it was at 0, and we go down a little bit, so there is that separation between the background and our monkey. But if you come here, the primary background is the building, the rocks, and it's all gray. So I want to boost up the green. Instead of taking it down to 27, which it was in the other picture, I actually want to bring it down to 0. So this looks good, but it can look better if we actually boost it up. This lightens up the frame a little bit and it adds more colors into the picture. Green is a very nice natural color, and the more of it we have, the better it is, especially when it's in small increments and it's adding to the picture. Here it would be taking away from the picture. Here it is adding to it because we have that gray background. Now here you have to be careful, as with other pictures, if you boost the saturation, the overall saturation all the way, this building becomes more blue. In addition to everything else, the building becomes more blue. And we don't want that. We want the building to be fading away into the background and for us to not pay any attention to it. So if you boost this all the way, everything becomes more blue. So what I want to do in this situation is actually take it down so the blueness of the building fades away and we don't even look at it as the viewer. Here, if you were to just look at this picture for the first time, the monkey would be the first object, the greenery would add to the picture, the flower pot is lit perfectly, but you don't even notice the building, it fades away. Now we do want to add purple a little bit because the flower is primarily purple and we do want some attention on here as well. Now, let's create a new mask and let's go into the radial gradient. And what I actually want to do is if you hold down shift and you drag it out, then it drags out in a perfect circle. But if you just freehand it, then you can adjust it in an elliptical shape. As such. And then again, if you hold down shift, it will adjust it proportional. So here what I want to do is make a gradient right on the top of his head and exactly proportionally however far the sunlight effect goes and it blows out the rest of his head. I want it to be this big. So the inner circle is where the actual adjustments are made and the outer circle is where it will fade into the natural look of the picture. So if you look at it like this, the inner circle, obviously this is too much, but if you look at the inner circle, it's blown out all the way and then it will fade back into the picture by the outer circle. So let's put that away. And this is that feather adjustment. So if you look at it, if it's all the way to 0, then the entire circle will be lit. If we feather it 100%, then the only parts that the adjustments will be made to is the center, and the rest of it would be a feather. So typically it's at a 50. Right now I want to feather it a little bit more so it has a more natural look. And just in one area. And I think 75 should be fine for that. Now, the whole point of this was to reduce the brightness on the top of his head. So let's bring this down until where it looks good. Too much, too much. You want to bring it down so the sunlight effect goes away, and that's exactly what we're looking for. Now we're going to do another one, but in this situation we will do another radial gradient, but we're going to do it on his stomach. But here we will take it, rotate it, put it here. Again, bring down that. Now obviously with the top of the head, it's a different story than the stomach, because the top of the head, the light hit it and then it dispersed. But with the stomach, it's because it's going through the branches, it's two straight lines. So we can't add a radial gradient and get rid of that, because what are we going to do with the two straight lines? So we can just reduce the effect of how bright it is compared to the rest of the body, which is what we're doing here. Now if we really want to go into a little bit more, we can add another one on top of the toes here and just slightly bring it down. Now here you have to be careful, because the adjustment is not just to the toes, it's also to the flower pot in the background. So you don't want to adjust it too much, just enough where it looks natural. Now if we were to do a before and after look on this picture, we can see the changes we've made. The picture is much more inviting. There's more separation between the background and the foreground. The subject and the background. Obviously the key difference being in this area, where there's a significant color exposure difference. You have a perfectly lit subject, and then we got rid of the background so it fades away. The other key thing being that we did is in the top of the head. This turned out really nice. Same thing with the stomach, to a lesser effect. Obviously we can't get rid of the sunlight because the way the sunlight is and the way it casts a shadow on the rest of the monkey, but lit up this rectangle here only. The colors we boosted: orange, red, and yellow. The colors of the monkey, purple a little bit. And so all these accessories that he's holding would be more visible. The other thing we did is light up this area just so it would compensate back to the original picture where we could see the flower pot using a gradient. And then this is what I was speaking to earlier. If these plants were to just fade away into the background and into the building, because right now they're at a similar shade, at a similar exposure, then that wouldn't be very interesting. We would have the monkey here, and then the tree in the background to the left side here, and then on this end of the frame it would just be nothing. However, since we boosted the green saturation, we have the greens and the building fades away into the background, but there's clear separation. Same thing for here. Here I actually want to go, and what we can do here, because there's a difference between these two pictures. These two pictures, we had the top of the head only lit, and then we had the rectangle on the stomach. But in this picture, since we're taking the picture directly from the front, both the rectangle on the stomach and the top of the head is in one line. So what I'm actually going to do here is go and add So what I've done here is added two masks. We have one mask here, and then we have another mask here. Now what I've done for both, just for demonstration purposes, is made both of them black. So this will demonstrate what I'm about to do next. And then if we take the other mask, so here we will put the center line of the mask on where the line of the shadow is. In this way, and we will also adjust the rotation of it so it lines up with the body and the line of the shadow here. So we will actually just line it up here. The center line is on the line of the shadow. Same thing for this one. Center line is on the line of the shadow. And then what we will do actually is boost up the, so this mask, the way it works is that it affects the entire left side of the picture, and the other one affects the entire right side of the picture. So what I will do is, instead of right now for demonstration purposes, I will boost it up to 0.6, 0.75. Same thing for this one. I will boost it up to, and you have to do these two exactly the same, so 0.75. And then I will come back to the actual picture where it is at plus 0.09. Now we'll go down 0.75. Okay, so here we can see that there's a slight improvement. Obviously we can't get rid of it all the way, but if we do it before and after, so before there was a clear difference, obviously that difference went to the forehead and into the sunglasses and behind the sunglasses. But here, after we've added the two separate masks right on the shadow lines, then we've reduced the impact here. I will actually make another one, a radial one here, rotate it like so, and here I'm actually going to bring down the feather so it covers this area, but it feathers very quickly like this, and then bring down the exposure for down up here like that, and that will be all of our masking done. Again, that's a before and after. Same for this one, before and after. In an ideal real-world situation, you would want to control these shadows so that you don't have to do all this post-production work. But here we can see a significant improvement over what it was before. Okay, and now we'll take these pictures and export them. Okay, so we just finished exporting these, and here are the final pictures. So a very warm, inviting look, and obviously we talked about in extensive detail subject separation from the background, and a wonderful date idea. If you enjoyed seeing this content, then please like and subscribe. I have a library of over 1,500 pictures that I need to go through and edit, so there's plenty of pictures like this and more landscapes, portraits, architecture, anything you can think of. I've taken pictures. I've never gotten around to editing them, but I will do so now. If you want access to these pictures, you can see them on my Instagram, website, Unsplash Wallpapers profile, and Shutterstock if you were looking at distributing them commercially and using them. For more content like this, please tune in regularly, and I will see you in the next video.